Guys, The Realist is back. The hiatus is over. The essays are done. The dissertation proposals are in. The objective news is back. Alright guys, so today I want to talk about something that I think is one of the most important topics in international affairs today, and unfortunately it receives far too little of the emphasis of the current news cycle, and that is cybersecurity, cyber attacks, cyber weapons. Now, long story short is we are currently in the midst of one of the most impactful revolutions in the history of man. You've had industrial revolutions, you've had technological revolutions. We are in the middle of a digital information revolution. And this connectivity between peoples and nations and continents with internet technology, mobile technology. This new revolution has ushered in a vast amount of economic growth, wealth, poverty reduction, health improvements. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. However, there is a dark side to this digital information revolution, and that is that states and non-state actors can use these capabilities, these newfound digital capabilities, to attack other states, companies, governments, militaries, multilateral institutions. Cyber attacks, cyber weapons using just ones and zeros are this generation's new weapon of mass destruction, and they are weapons of mass destruction. And what I'm arguing on this episode is that the international community, both individual nation states and the international community at large, has not had a sufficient discussion and has not created a sufficient framework and strategy for dealing with offensive cyber weapons. Now let's take a step back. In the history of military technology and military strategy, for most of human history you had armies and navies. Right? In the 20th century, a whole new element was introduced, and that was an air force, and that drastically changed the tactics and the strategy of military force. Cyber weapons today are now the fourth area or strategy or arm of military force. And so if there's going to be a war between two nations, however big or small, you can bet that one of the first, if not the first ways these different states are going to attack each other is through cyber weapons, is through attacking the network and the critical infrastructure that is based upon digital connectivity, the Internet of Things. That is going to be the smoking gun. And what I want to use as an example here for the rest of this episode is this issue or this event called Stuxnet. Stuxnet, which I'll explain in a minute, was really one of the first times that a major nation state used digital warfare, ones and zeros, computer technology, to physically attack or have physical consequences to another state. Now, states have been doing this for a while in the economic realms and the spying realm, but this was really one of the first major military type attacks to actually damage infrastructure from one state to another state. Now, what is Stuxnet? Briefly put, the United States, in conjunction with Israel, have been wanting to target Iran's nuclear infrastructure, and particularly their centrifuges. Now, centrifuges are an integral part to the process of getting weapons-grade uranium, plutonium for making a nuclear weapon. What the United States and Israel wanted to do is, instead of having Israel go into Iran and physically bomb these nuclear reactors, these centrifuges with military technology, instead, the US and Iran developed Stuxnet, basically a computer virus, a cyber weapon. And so what Stuxnet did was it actually infiltrated the Natanz nuclear facility in Iran, and without getting into all the technical mumbo-jumbo, basically this cyber weapon, this weapon composed of ones and zeros, caused centrifuges in Iran, nearly 1,000 of them, to literally blow up. And this was all done in the digital domain. Now, we need to understand what Stuxnet is. It was a military attack. It was basically the equivalent of throwing a grenade, launching a missile, launching a bomb from a bomber plane onto a nuclear facility. It was a military attack, an act of war. Now, why is this such an important moment in military and international relations history? Well, as the former head of the NSA and CIA, General Michael Hayden, said, this use of Stuxnet was basically like a August 1945 moment, right? And this is the moment when the United States dropped a nuclear weapon on Japan. It ushered in a whole new area of nuclear warfare as an integral part of warfare. Now this moment, Stuxnet, is like that. It's like that type of a moment in our day, in our era. Why is it so important? Because literally almost everything, particularly in the Western world, but around the world, is connected, is driven by, is attached to the cyber domain, the internet, networks, our critical infrastructure, sewage plants, transportation, financial services, companies. All of these things are integrated into the web. And so if the United States or Russia or Iran or China can use cyber weapons to attack the critical infrastructure of any country around the world, it would have devastating consequences. The financial sector would have to shut down, the communications sector would have to shut down, telecom companies would be in disarray, power companies would be disarray, they could knock out nuclear power plants causing untold devastation. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and that's why it's apropos to call these things weapons of mass destruction. And lastly, cyber weapons, I believe, provide the ultimate asymmetric advantage. What do I mean by this? Well, in the past, if you wanted to be a nuclear power, you needed hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars and lots of expertise to build up the nuclear technology, the delivery system, whether it be a missile or a stealth bomber or a nuclear submarine. Now, if you want to be proficient at cyber attacks, all you need are a few computer hackers, a little bit of infrastructure and some computers and some servers, and you're in. And we've seen that both non-state actors in small states that don't have nearly as much infrastructure like North Korea are nonetheless very proficient and are capable at using cyber weapons to attack critical infrastructure. And the case in point of this is in response to the Stuxnet attack from the United States and Israel on Iran, Iran then unleashed its cyber capabilities, first by targeting the largest oil company in the world, Saudi Aramco, and secondly by attacking large financial institutions in the United States. And it was actually, at the time, the biggest cyber attack against financial companies in the US like Bank of America and Wells Fargo. And what was the message that Iran was sending the United States? Hey, United States, we know you can use cyber weapons, but keep in mind, so can we. And this is very dangerous. This is very, very dangerous because there's not a lot of strategy and discussion going on about when is it appropriate or is it ever appropriate to use cyber weapons. Where is the international body, the international law, the international framework which governs, which regulates and oversees the use of cyber warfare? And it's an incredibly powerful issue. Just ask China. One of the major ways that China is affecting trade relationships with particularly countries like the United States is that it hacks into private and even military and government installations to hack the information and the technology to use it as basically intellectual property theft, enabled for China to create these same type of products. Now, what's the point, guys? The point is that, yes, conventional worries like terrorism or state-on-state warfare or tradecraft, these types of things are still worries in international affairs, but I think these types of cyber weapons are ultimately the most devastating weapon that the world is facing, mostly because no one is really talking about it. There isn't a framework, there isn't a strategy like mutually assured destruction between the United States and the Soviet Union that said, if the Soviet Union, if you launch your nuclear weapons, the United States will launch its, both of our countries will be destroyed, and so that would deter both countries from using nuclear weapons. That kind of deterrence, that kind of understanding is not at play in cyber weapons. It's kind of a free-for-all right now. Of course, countries are hesitant to use it because as advanced as cyber weapons are, cyber defense, countries' ability to protect themselves and their companies from cyber attacks is very lacking. It's very, very difficult to protect your country, your critical infrastructure, your company's critical infrastructure and technology from cyber attacks. It's much easier to develop offensive weapons and have that capability than it is to defend. So what am I arguing, guys? We need more public discussions about what are the capabilities, what are our governments actually able to do. I mean, if you can watch the documentary 0 Days, which chronicles the Stuxnet attack, you will see how incredibly scary this type of technology is. I mean, literally, it's ones and zeros, it's computer programming, you press enter, you send it, and these digital elements can create physical damage. I mean, that's scary, and if there's no framework in place, if there's no discussion in place, we could be heading to a war of all against all. So that's it for today, guys. What do you think about cyber weapons? What do you think about the lack of a framework for discussing or regulating cyber weapons in the international sphere? Comment below. Let me know, guys. It's good to be back. I've got more videos coming. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Share the videos. And remember, reality always trumps ideology.